Welcome back to English Listen and Learn. I'm Ben,
And I'm Anna.
and we are so glad you could join us for this deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, walking into a room full of new faces can be a little nerve-wracking for anyone,
Well,
right?
especially when you're trying to make a good impression in a language you're still learning.
It's like all those grammar rules and vocabulary words are swirling around in your head, and you just hope you don't accidentally say something completely off.
Like, where is the bathroom when you meant to ask, what's your favorite color?
Oh, I've been there.
We've all been there.
But hey, that's all part of the fun, right?
Absolutely.
So today, we're going to tackle this head on, give you some practical tips and tricks to confidently introduce yourself at social events, even if you're not a native speaker.
We'll cover everything from breaking the ice to keeping the conversation going.
And even how to follow up afterwards and actually build those connections.
So if you're ready to ditch the awkward silences and actually enjoy those social gatherings, you've come to the right place.
First things first, let's talk about those anxieties that tend to pop up in these situations. You know, that feeling of, will people understand me?
Yeah.
Or what if I sound silly?
It's so normal to feel that way, especially when you're still getting comfortable with a new language.
I remember when I was learning Spanish and trying to chat with locals in Barcelona, I'd overthink every sentence, like convinced I was going to mess up the verb conjugation or use the wrong gender for a noun.
It's like your brain is doing a triple somersault while trying to remember irregular verbs.
Exactly. And it's easy to get stuck in that fear of judgment. But here's the thing. Most people are way more forgiving and understanding than we give them credit for.
They're usually just happy to connect and have a good conversation, you know?
I'm not sitting there with a red pen grading your grammar.
Exactly. So take a deep breath, relax, and remember that everyone's been a beginner at some point.
Even the most fluent speakers have stumbled through those early stages.
It's all part of the journey.
So how do we shift from feeling intimidated to feeling ready to mingle? Let's start with the basics, the foundation of any successful social interaction, breaking the ice.
It's all about creating that positive first impression, that welcoming vibe that says, hey, I'm open to connecting.
And sometimes the simplest things can make the biggest difference. What are some of those small but mighty icebreakers?
Well, think about those universal signals of openness and warmth, a genuine smile, eye contact that shows you're engaged, even a slight nod.
Those nonverbal cues can be especially helpful when you're still finding your footing with spoken language.
They say so much without you even having to say a word.
Like you're saying, hey, I'm happy to be here.
And you can also use the environment itself to spark conversation.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, a comment about the venue, the music, or even a simple question like, have you been to one of these events before? Can be a great starting point.
I see, you're using your surroundings as a common ground to start a chat.
Exactly. And it takes the pressure off of having to come up with something super clever or witty right off the bat.
Those are great for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But how do we move beyond those initial pleasantries and actually introduce ourselves?
Well, that's where we want to go beyond the basic, hi, my name is,
Yeah.
and add a little something extra to make our introduction memorable.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
How do we spice things up?
Think about sharing a detail that might pique the other person's curiosity.
Okay, like what?
It could be your reason for being at the event,
Right.
or maybe a recent move to the city, a hobby that's related to the gathering.
Or even a funny anecdote about your language learning journey.
Yes, something that gives the other person a glimpse into who you are and what makes you tick.
So instead of just saying, hi, I'm Ben, I can say something like, hi, I'm Ben and I just moved here from California. I'm still trying to figure out how to make a decent cup of coffee with a mocha pot.
Perfect. It's relatable, it's personal, and it gives the other person a natural opening to ask you more.
It's like an invitation to go beyond the superficial small talk.
Exactly.
Now, for those who are feeling a bit more adventurous, are there any more structured approaches to crafting a captivating introduction?
Absolutely. There's a technique we call the past, present, future formula.
Okay, break this down for us. How does that work?
So you start by mentioning something about your past, maybe where you're from, or a significant experience that's shaped you.
Got it. So I could say something like, I grew up in a small town in the Midwest where everyone knew everyone.
Exactly. Then you transition to the present. What are you currently doing? What brought you to this event? What are you passionate about right now?
So continuing that example, I could say, now I'm living in New York City, and I'm loving the energy and diversity here. I'm particularly excited about exploring the language learning scene and meeting people from all over the world.
And then you wrap it up with a glimpse into your future. What are your aspirations? What are you hoping to gain from this experience?
I'm hoping to connect with other language enthusiasts and maybe even find a language exchange partner to practice with.
You see, it's like telling a mini story about yourself, making it much more engaging than just stating facts.
And the key here is to be genuine, to let your personality shine through.
And speak with enthusiasm.
People are drawn to those who are passionate and excited about life.
It's contagious.
So, regardless of the approach you choose, make sure your introduction reflects the real you and is delivered with a smile.
And that genuine interest in connecting with others.
Now, once we've broken the ice and introduced ourselves, the next hurdle is keeping the conversation flowing smoothly.
That's where the art of conversation comes in.
But we'll save that for after a quick break.
And that's where things can get a little tricky. You know, you've exchanged names, you've maybe made a few initial comments, but then what?
It's like you're both standing there with those awkward smiles thinking, okay, what do we talk about now?
It's like that moment when the elevator music stops and there's just silence.
Exactly. So how do we avoid those conversational dead ends and keep things flowing naturally?
Well, the key is to ask engaging questions, questions that spark genuine interest and get the other person talking.
Okay, but what kind of questions are we talking about here?
Think open-ended questions, questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no.
So instead of asking, do you like movies? I could ask, what kind of movies are you into?
That's a great example. It invites the other person to share their preferences, their passions.
And it gives you a chance to discover common ground.
Exactly. And once you find that common ground, the conversation naturally starts to flow.
It's like you found a shared path to walk on.
Now, if you're struggling to come up with those open-ended questions, there's a handy little acronym you can use. F40?
40, like the car.
Yep. It stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams.
Oh, I see. So I could ask about their family, their work, their hobbies, and their aspirations.
It's a great way to cover a lot of ground and get to know someone on a deeper level.
But let's be real. Sometimes just asking questions can feel a bit like an interrogation.
It's like you're filling out a survey instead of having a genuine conversation.
How do we make it feel more natural, more like a back-and-forth exchange?
Well, that's where sharing a bit about yourself comes in. You know, don't be afraid to offer your own thoughts, opinions, and experiences.
Like instead of just asking, what do you do for fun? I can say, I love hiking in my free time. What about you?
That's a great example. You're sharing something personal, inviting the other person to reciprocate.
And it shows that you're not just asking questions out of politeness, but because you're genuinely interested in getting to know them.
It's about building that rapport, finding those points of connection.
And remember, conversations are a two-way street. Active listening is just as important as asking great questions.
Absolutely. It's not just about waiting for your turn to speak, but really paying attention to what the other person is saying, showing them that you're engaged.
So nodding, making eye contact, asking follow-up questions, all of those nonverbal cues are crucial.
They show that you're not just hearing their words, but you're actually listening and processing what they're saying.
Now, what about those awkward silences that inevitably pop up in conversations? They can be especially daunting for language learners.
Oh, I know those silences can feel like an eternity.
Like everyone's staring at you, waiting for you to say something profound.
But here's the thing. Silences are perfectly normal. They're a natural part of any conversation.
So how do we navigate those moments without feeling like we need to fill every gap with chatter?
Well, one strategy is to simply acknowledge the silence, maybe with a phrase like, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second.
It's like giving yourself permission to pause and gather your thoughts.
Exactly. And it also shows the other person that you're taking their question or comment seriously.
You're not just rushing to fill the silence with any old words.
And you know, sometimes those silences can actually lead to some really interesting tangents.
Like you might notice something in your surroundings that sparks a new topic of conversation.
Or the other person might chime in with a follow-up question or comment that takes the conversation in a whole new direction.
It's about embracing those pauses and seeing where they lead.
Now, as we're talking about all these tips and techniques, it's important to remember that language learning is a journey. It's not about being perfect.
It's about being willing to make mistakes and learn from them.
And to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Like when you finally remember that irregular verb conjugation, or you can hold a conversation without constantly looking up words.
Those are the moments that keep you motivated and make the whole journey worthwhile.
And remember, fluency isn't about speaking perfectly. It's about being able to connect with others and express yourself authentically.
And that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
Right.
So be kind to yourself, embrace the learning process, and most importantly, have fun.
Now, once you've had that great conversation, the next step is making sure it doesn't just end there.
That's where the art of following up comes in.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we'll be discussing in the final part of our deep dive. And following up is really where the magic happens. It's like you've planted the seed of a potential friendship, and now you're giving it the water and sunshine it needs to grow.
I like that. It's about turning those fleeting encounters into something more lasting.
Exactly. But I know it can feel a little daunting, especially if you're not sure how to do it without seeming too pushy.
Yeah, that fear of rejection can definitely hold us back.
But here's the thing. The worst that can happen is that the other person doesn't respond or politely declines.
It's not the end of the world.
And trust me, it's much better to take the chance and reach out than to wonder what if.
So let's dive into the how-tos of following up. What's the first step?
Well, first, you want to choose the right mode of communication. Did you exchange phone numbers?
Right.
Then a casual text message can be a great way to go.
Or if you connected on social media, a friend request or a direct message would work well.
Exactly. And the key is to keep it authentic and personal.
So instead of just saying, "It was nice to meet you,"
Right.
I could say something like, "Hey, Name, it was great chatting with you at the event last night. I particularly enjoyed hearing about your experience with Copic. Would love to continue the conversation sometime."
Perfect. It's friendly, it shows you're paying attention, and it leaves the door open for further interaction.
And if you're feeling bold and you really hit it off with someone, you can even suggest a specific next step.
Like grabbing coffee or attending another event together.
It shows initiative
Yeah.
and makes it easier for the other person to say yes.
Now, what if you didn't get a chance to exchange contact info?
That happens sometimes.
Well, that's where a little bit of social media sleuthing can come in handy.
I love that, social media sleuthing.
If you met at a conference or workshop, you could try searching for them on LinkedIn.
Or if it was an event organized by a specific group, check their website or social media pages.
You might find a list of attendees or even a group photo where you can spot them.
It's like a digital treasure hunt.
Once you found them online, send a connection request or a message mentioning where you met and expressing your interest in connecting.
It might take a bit more effort, but it's definitely worth it if you felt a genuine spark.
And remember, following up isn't just about making new friends. It's also a great way to nurture existing relationships.
Like sending a quick text to a friend you haven't seen in a while.
Or commenting on their social media posts.
Those little gestures can go a long way in keeping those connections strong.
Absolutely. It shows you're thinking about them and that you value their presence in your life.
So whether you're meeting someone for the first time or reconnecting with an old friend, remember that communication is key.
It's the glue that holds relationships together.
And the more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become in those social situations.
Absolutely. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself with how much you enjoy connecting with others in your new language.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive on introducing yourself at social events. We hope you found it helpful and encouraging.
Remember, the next time you're feeling those butterflies in your stomach before walking into a room full of new faces, take a deep breath.
Be yourself.
And embrace the opportunity to connect.
You never know what amazing friendships or collaborations might be waiting just around the corner.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of English Listen and Learn.
Let's learn some new vocabularies together. Nerve-wracking. It means very stressful or making you feel anxious. Example: waiting for my exam results was a nerve-wracking experience. Triple somersault. It means a flip in the air where you rotate 3 times. Example: the gymnast impressed everyone with a perfect triple somersault. Find your footing. It means to become comfortable or confident in a new situation. Example: it took me a few weeks to find my footing in my new job. Common ground. It means shared interests or agreement between people. Example: despite their different opinions, they found common ground on environmental issues. Get the ball rolling. It means to start an activity or process. Example: let's get the ball rolling on the project by assigning tasks. Thanks for watching. Until next time.